Earlier this week, a friend told me that he had been camping at an ayahuasca ceremony, and halfway through the weekend, the campground lost water access. 20 people were sharing the restrooms and purging from both ends, but they had no running water in order to flush toilets or wash their hands. But my friend has a strong yoga practice, so instead of being stressed as hell, he was able to laugh while recounting the situation to me. So, why prioritize a spiritual practice? To handle all of life's intensity with grace. What is up, my witches? Welcome to the Queer Soul Alchemy podcast, where we help queer folks connect with supportive community, embrace their authentic selves, and explore spirituality, yoga, and astrology. I'm your host, Lee Davey. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Queer Soul Alchemy podcast, where we transform, transmute, and rise again like a phoenix rises from the ashes. I'm your host and favorite queer NB priestess, Lee Davey, a 500-hour certified yoga instructor, 600-hour certified Ayurvedic health counselor, self-taught intuitive astrologer, and 100% certifiable self-development nerd. In this episode, we're getting real and raw, and I'll be sharing some vulnerable moments with you from my own spiritual journey. You'll learn how to harness the intensity of Scorpio energy for your own powerful shadow work and healing. You'll learn about the importance and meaning of sadhana or spiritual practice, and you'll learn to witness the magic that happens when we prioritize turning inward. But first, new episodes of this podcast drop every Thursday, posted to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Wherever you're listening from, please help me stay sane and feel less like I'm just screaming into the vast and lawless black hole of the internet by leaving me a like, a comment, and a nice little 5-star review. And make sure you're subscribed/following me, honey, so that you can see more of me and I can see more of you. It really helps to go a far way toward helping other queer seekers find this magic. And don't miss out on exclusive access to my free self-care resource guide, which I've specifically curated for you to support your journey with self-development. To download this guide and receive exclusive insights and resources directly to your inbox, please sign up for my email newsletter on my website at youareloved.one/pod. All right, y'all, let's get into today's content. So we're all super busy. We live in a busy world, and it never feels like there's enough time in the day, at least not to me. So why bother to prioritize something like a spiritual practice, especially when at times everything else just seems like it's more important? I feel it, you guys. So to answer this question, I want to share a few real life examples that have come up just during this most recent Mercury retrograde as it's gone full force. So like I mentioned at the top of the episode earlier this week, a friend told me that he had been camping at an ayahuasca ceremony, and halfway through the weekend, the campground lost water access. So if you've ever been to a plant medicine ceremony, you know what it's like. 20 people were sharing these restrooms at this campground, purging from both ends, and they didn't have running water to flush toilets or wash their hands. So this was a very stressful and gross situation that my friend was just reflecting on very calmly. And on top of this, he was already dealing with water damage from a plumbing issue at one of his businesses, resulting in the floor actually needing to be unexpectedly replaced last week. But like I said, he has a strong yoga practice. So instead of being stressed as hell by this, he was actually able to laugh while he was recounting the situation to me. And he wasn't complaining about it at all. He was actually just calmly reflecting on the situation. So knowing that I'm an astrology geek, he did ask me, doesn't this Mercury retrograde have a lot to do with water? And it got me thinking, yes, it does. So the last episode, I really dove deep into the Scorpio new moon, you guys, which happened yesterday as of the day of me filming this. And the sun is also in its final days, final degrees of Scorpio as of the date of filming. And we also have Mercury retrograding from Sagittarius back into the water sign of Scorpio. So much Scorpio energy. Scorpio is the fixed water sign, and it is ruled by both Mars and Pluto. So it is known for being intense, you guys. And like all of the water signs, Scorpio is highly intuitive, perceptive, and insightful. However, because of that planetary rulership of Mars and Pluto, it gives this energy an edge that can come off as mysterious and even intimidating. Mars is about war, aggression, and force. Pluto deals with obsession, destruction, power, and control. Scorpio is the subconscious, the dark, rotting underbelly. It deals with what is hidden below the surface, literally or figuratively. Therefore, Scorpio is actually associated with plumbing, indeed, particularly the hidden systems of plumbing, such as sewers and pipes, particularly the systems that deal with the necessary, important, but taboo and gross job of removing waste. So, similarly, Scorpio carries an intuitive capacity to hold space for other people's subconscious waste, so to speak. Scorpios are the alchemists of the zodiac, so they're constantly transforming and rebirthing themselves. And their life experiences will teach them the value of non attachment, unfortunately, through significant loss, grief, and transformation, most commonly. So, therefore, Scorpios have that emotional capacity to confront head on qualities that many other archetypes would resist, avoid, or fear, such as darkness, pain, and death. This makes them natural experts in shadow work. However, darkness can be a comfort zone. We can stay small in our comfort zones, and pain can be used as an excuse not to work on ourselves. So, this is why, with every single sign, vibration is so important. And there are two frequencies of Scorpio, that hardened lower vibration and then that softened higher frequency, right? So, the frequency is going to make up the difference between that deceptive type of energy and then discerning energy. This is the difference between entering the healing vortex and the trauma vortex that we talked about last episode. So, the archetype of Scorpio shows us that true healing comes from integrating these parts of ourselves that appears to be at odds rather than avoiding those parts of ourselves that we'd rather not claim, right? Those shadow attributes that maybe we're ashamed of, that maybe we would rather hide. So while my friend found himself dealing with physical bodily waste, I unfortunately found myself being used as a receptacle for someone else's emotional subconscious waste. And I'll talk more about that later. I'm a Scorpio rising, so this is a common occurrence, really for anyone who struggles with people pleasing, caretaker wounds, or maintaining boundaries. But I also have Pluto in my first house conjunct my ascendant in Scorpio. So it's been a pattern in my life for people to respond to me in a bizarre, kind of obsessive love hate manner. But I digress. So the takeaway from my conversation with my friend was that these difficult moments in our everyday life are the reason to have a spiritual practice. Let me put it another way. If our regular practice of meditation or ritual is like a dress rehearsal, then life's actual moments of intensity are the show itself. If the struggle to stay mentally present on our yoga mat or our meditation cushion is like soccer practice, then challenges in our actual life are like the big game. Just as healthy exercise prevents bodily injury, spiritual practice both protects us from and prepares us for life's emotional struggles and stress. And this Mercury retrograde is the shortest one of the year so far, but it's also the most intense, you guys. And it's offering us a potent opportunity for shadow work and going back over those things that have been left unsaid, left undone, maybe halfway finished, both personally and collectively. And in the last episode, I also shared about the astrological taking a stand energy that is affecting us this week, bringing in the fiery energy of passion, movement, and bold conviction. So, this is potentially inspiring powerful political activism this week as we are on a collective level revisiting ninth house themes such as political ideologies, foreign relations, the law, and the justice system, and philosophical beliefs. All of these are ninth house topics ruled by Sagittarius. And of course, just in this past week, we've had more information come to light with Trump's involvement in the Epstein files. And it really does feel like a collective purging, like from the depths, from the bowels, right? That which is normally hidden, those Plutonian conversations and topics are coming to light. Specifically, things that have previously been hidden are now being revealed. Scorpio energy is a ruthless truth teller. And we have to see that dark underbelly, that rotting flesh, right? We have to see it, what we'd rather hide, in order to integrate it. We have to acknowledge it. We have to be willing to let it come into the light of consciousness and be known. Once we do that, it has significantly less power over us, right? When we bring something into our conscious mind, we are aware of it. And so we can own it rather than it subconsciously owning us. This is what Scorpio energy teaches us. We're more whole when we integrate those rejected aspects of ourselves rather than simply shoving them down into the dark. So, with everything happening politically, I'm sure you guys can think of more examples of this energy on a collective level. But how might this unfold on a personal level? Speak your truth, but do it with grace. So, this Mercury retrograde is a recalibration. We're in the thick of it right now, you guys. This is a chance to slow down and realign your energetic compass in preparation for a more authentic, raw, truthful 2026. So, on that note, I don't want to leave you guys hanging. I want to address what I mentioned before, where for me personally, this is coming up as a revisitation of a caretaker wound that has really been coming to a head for me all throughout the past year and all throughout 2024 as well. So, the situation that I mentioned where I felt like I was being used as somebody's receptacle for their emotional trash, so to speak, that is something that I have experienced frequently. And I do think that in part, that is my karma in this lifetime because I have a Scorpio ascendant and because Pluto is also in my first house, conjunct my Scorpio ascendant. So I'm really embodying this scorpionic, kind of shamanic death, rebirth, transformation type of energy in this lifetime. Since it's my ascendant, that's what I'm moving toward, what I'm embodying in this lifetime. But whether or not you have Scorpio in your chart, you guys, if you identify with having a caretaker wound or with being a people pleaser or just simply with struggling with boundaries, this is something that you possibly could take a lesson from and possibly learn from. So I just wanted to share my experience if you're interested in hearing that. So I have done a lot of work around this particular wound. And at first, I kind of went into that lower vibrational energy of Scorpio that I mentioned before, where it's like more of that hardened outer shell, that exoskeleton, the like intimidating, dark, mysterious, or even vengeful and violent kind of energy of Scorpio. I would never say that I was violent as a person, but like in my words or in my energy, if I felt insecure or too vulnerable or too exposed or out of control in some way, or if I was simply angry, right? I could be violent with my words and with my energy. And that is that lower energy of Scorpio, that venom. Now, nobody is born that way, right? We become that way over time. And especially in the case of Scorpio energy or water signs in general, there is a softness there. There is an emotional attunement and openness and sensitivity there, right? And over time, I attracted situations. And like I mentioned before, I'm a Scorpio rising, so my life experiences taught me that it's not always safe to open up, and it's not always safe to become emotionally attached or allow myself to trust and feel that emotional security, right? Because there's a lot of grief and a lot of loss associated with that death, rebirth, and transformation of Scorpio. And so by the time I became an adult, there was a certain hardening that had happened, but yet a certain amount of softness also. And this combination just brought me to continuously attract that caretaker type of role into my life. So, specifically, I would attract relationships that allowed me to be the caretaker. Now, after being in therapy for years, I realized that there was actually something in that for me. What was in it for me on my side was control. Last time we talked about the archetypes of Scorpio and Taurus, both really liking to be in control, but having different approaches to how they get there. Again, I'm sharing all of this because you guys might relate to it, especially if you resonate with me as a teacher and with my work. So, I've always known that I had wounding with my family of origin, but I did not realize how much work I actually had to do around caretaking my family of origin. I knew that there was like emotional abuse in my upbringing. I knew that there was like boundaries crossed and things like that, but I didn't actually understand the extent to which I had learned to cope by becoming a caretaker for especially my parents, but really my entire family to the detriment of my own needs. I learned to cope by putting my own needs on the back burner and becoming highly emotionally attuned and sensitive and aware of the needs and the energies and emotions of really everyone around me. And I did not realize that this was something that was so deeply ingrained into me until more recently when I've done the therapy and the self reflection work to unpack all of this. So, before I had done all of that, I had a series of relationships, romantic relationships in particular, but also friendships, where I was playing this caretaker role, where I would be emotionally supporting somebody, helping them care for themselves physically, stay healthy with exercise and eating well. It's natural for me to want to step in and do that. And that's why feel so fulfilled in my career as a yoga instructor and an Ayurvedic health counselor, because I am able to support and help others, but I actually get energetic supported in return by being paid for those services, right? Versus with my family of origin and then previous relationships that I've had with friends as well as romantic partners, I was not getting anything in return, or so I thought, right? Subconsciously, I was actually getting something from being in that caretaker role. Being in that caretaker role allowed me to be in control of the situation. And having a friend or having a romantic partner that I perceived to need me or depend on me in some way, or they would kind of put me on a pedestal because of me constantly over giving to them, but I would lose my boundaries within that and then eventually start to become resentful. And then when I did set any kind of boundary or stop over giving, people have consistently turned against me, right? Because I did not realize that this dynamic was a subconscious dynamic that actually required my participation. I thought that I was just going about my business, and all of these kind of really wounded people, or in some cases, straight up abusive people, just continued to find me. And I don't know why I'm attracting this, and I don't know that I am actually subconsciously attracted to it as well. But because of this dynamic, because I give off caretaker vibes and also trauma survivor vibes, that's outside of the scope of this talk today. But suffice it to say that when you survive trauma, specifically childhood trauma, those very subtle body language cues get embedded into your nervous system. So they become very habituated. And as you become an adult and move through life, people that want to inflict harm onto others can then sense that because we're all energetically sensitive, whether we realize it or not. We'll be different levels of attuned to our own energy and our emotions, regardless of whether people realize it or not. We are all energetically sensitive, and we can all pick up on each other's feelings through body language and microfacial expressions. So, because of being a trauma survivor, because of having an unhealed caretaker wound for years, basically my whole entire 20s, I'm 29 now, I have consistently attracted friends, lovers, even work relationships too, you guys, that have had this imbalance of me overgiving, lacking boundaries, and being a caretaker for the other person, which I now realize actually gave me a feeling of being in control. Because if I'm perceived to be the stronger one or the one with all the answers in the situation and the other person needs me, that puts the power into my hands. There's also an abandonment wound coming up with that caretaker wound. If I take care of somebody, then they need me so they won't leave me. If I just give more and caretake more, then maybe eventually one day they'll love me too and they'll take care of me too. I have to take care of them so that someone will be there to take care of me. That's the inner child story, right? Does any of this resonate with you guys? I have to take care of them so that maybe one day they'll give it back to me. Maybe they'll take care of me. I need someone to take care of me someday. But that's a trap. With this type of imbalance, I'm actually getting something out of it, which is getting to be in control. So then if I'm giving with that expectation of eventually they'll give back, I'm not realizing who it is that I'm giving to. This dynamic exists and was working because of that energetic imbalance of one person being a giver and the other person being a taker. There's already been an established pattern that the other person subconsciously agreed to, right? So if you resonate with this and you're resonating on the side of being the caretaker or the people pleaser, and it's really hard for you to grasp how you can actually take accountability for this and how there is a subconscious part of you that actually is attracted to that dynamic, I get it. I get it. It's been so hard and it's taken so many years of looking at this imbalance to really realize it for what it is and really understand my role in it in order to change it. But this situation happened recently, and I won't go into specifics, but I was being scapegoated, and somebody that originally put me on that pedestal did a 180 because I set boundaries and I stopped giving to them. And so, like what has happened many, many times before, the person had to knock me off of that pedestal because the deal for them was that I give and they take. So if I decide to stop giving, they end the relationship, right? That is this toxic, sick, imbalanced dynamic that subconsciously I have also been a willing participant in. Subconsciously, there is still a part of me that says, look at this person. They need something that I probably actually can't give them, but I still want to help. And because I have this very deep wound of my worth is tied to how much I give, how much I self-sacrifice to help others, how empathetic, compassionate, and open I am, which I've been trained to believe means being boundaryless, right? Because that seed of that wound is still alive in me, and I've done a lot of work around it, but it's still alive in me. It's coming up again to be worked on again. It's the same situation that has happened many times, but I am different, and I have done more work around it in order to then navigate that situation differently. And part of this caretaker wound, because of the nature of it, the person that is the taker, they're essentially in an infantilized position where they are weaponizing incompetence to some degree, or perhaps they actually are just incompetent, right? But they're in an infantilized position where, regardless of if it's being weaponized or if it's genuine, incompetence is working in their favor, and they have to stay in this infantilized, incompetent, helpless place in order for that dynamic to continue. Children do not know yet how to deal with their emotions. They need to be taught. And so if a child becomes very upset and hurt and they don't have tools for healing and working with their emotions, then they'll resort to blaming their emotions on others, shaming others, fighting, running away from the situation, right? And so when you have emotionally immature adults that are then in these codependent type of giver taker dynamics with other adults, one person is significantly emotionally immature. And so when the giver then sets boundaries, it will trigger the taker. The giver is also triggered, whether or not they realize it, at least in my experience. Then this series of events leads the taker to feel that they've been scorned, that this is not what they signed up to anymore. And because they're no longer able to take from the giver, they're going to use that person as a subconscious receptacle for their feelings. And really, this is happening on both sides because both sides have an unconscious wound that this dynamic is attempting to replay in order to heal it. If there is conscious awareness of the wound on both sides and both parties, then yes, it can be worked on, absolutely. But oftentimes, because that type of dynamic requires the person that is taking to be a little bit less emotionally mature, it's harder for them to take accountability for their side, so then it's harder for them to work on it. And from the caretaker role, oftentimes the person that is caretaking doesn't even realize their role in the situation either. Like I said, in my experience, I didn't think that I was actually doing anything to participate in this dynamic. I just thought those type of people are attracted to me. So same thing for the person in the caretaker role. If they're not realizing that they're actually getting something out of this dynamic subconsciously, then they can't take accountability for it either. And so then it can't be worked on. But consciousness is the key. So in the past, I had limited awareness, limited experience, and now I'm a lot more empowered to speak up and to protect myself gracefully. So, where are you guys seeing this in your own life? Reflect on what this retrograde is bringing up from your emotional depths to be gone back over. Is there a situation coming up that feels similar to something that you've gone through, but you feel different and you have a new approach to what might feel like a familiar problem? So, why prioritize a spiritual practice and what happens when we do? Well, to be able to handle all of life's intensity with grace, like I said before. And I have met people on the spiritual path who absolutely astounded me with the amount of capacity they could hold, the space they could hold for others, and the duties and responsibilities they had, all without seeming phased or stressed in the least. And these people had one thing in common: they had a strong spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for them. And I've seen it in myself as well when my meditation practice has been particularly strong and consistent. So let's ground this idea now through the lens of Ayurveda. Our spiritual practice, or regular sadhana, is very grounding for our mind, body, and our energy. And over the past several episodes of the podcast, I've been sharing with you guys my top Ayurveda wellness tips for fall, which is known as Vata season in Ayurveda, or the season of air and ether. Fall increases the qualities of Vata dosha in our mind and body, such as air, ether, dry, light, cold, rough, and crunchy. And when there's too much Vata dosha, the imbalance can cause uncomfortable symptoms such as anxiety, insomnia, and bloating. And this imbalance can be corrected by bringing in the opposite qualities such as wet, heavy, warm, smooth, and oily. So we've talked a lot about what Vata looks like when it's not balanced. Signs of healthy or balanced Vata dosha include mental clarity and inspiration, creativity and energy, feeling a lot of love, peace, deep spiritual connection, mental and physical flexibility, sound sleep, and regular elimination. So once the body is grounded and nourished, then we are prepared to deepen our meditation and spiritual practice. And Scorpio season and or Vata season, aka the fall, is a particularly potent time for shadow work and breakthroughs during our sadhana because the veil is already thin between the conscious and the subconscious. But don't get me wrong, really any time is a great time for spiritual practice. It's most beneficial to do some type of regular sadhana daily, even if it's just a few minutes every single day. A little bit on a very consistent basis is better over time versus a lot on an inconsistent basis, for example. Sadhana is a Sanskrit word that translates to spiritual practice. The world outside is chaotic, noisy, and constantly changing. And in fact, the only true constant is change. So, sadhana is the intentional time of stillness and quiet that we seek to return to again and again, that stable base in the chaos of life. And having this thread of consistency through our sadhana practice builds up our sense of security and inner peace. That inner peace does not rely on anything on the outside being a certain way. The inner peace is inside of us. So, spiritual practice is intended to be grounding, to reduce anxiety and stress, and to provide an opportunity for us to commune with the divine or with your higher self. So, choose whatever helps you do that. It could be music, some form of movement, maybe it's stillness for you, maybe it's nature time. Sadhana is not one size fits all. Traditional yoga lineages tend to be more strict on the definition of sadhana to mean only pranayama, breath control, or asana poses, meditation, which is practicing the 8 limbs of yoga, and then seva, or selfless service. But here on the Queer Soul Alchemy podcast, we are all about accessibility, diversity, and inclusion. So I would argue that anything can be sadhana. Doing the dishes can be sadhana. And this is where intention comes in. So sankalpa is another Sanskrit word that means intention or vow, and it is a core practice found in yoga and meditation. A sankalpa is an internal resolution with an emotional feeling. It's a concise, present term statement of a deeply held desire. This simple practice holds potent psychological and philosophical wisdom. By mentally repeating a sankalpa, particularly while our brain is in a flow state or a relaxed brainwave state, then you are sowing seeds of change into your subconscious mind to transform old stuck thought patterns. What's in our subconscious mind subconsciously runs us, so it might as well be something positive, right? One last word about this, you guys. I often hear folks say that they don't have time for spiritual practice, and I tried to address this a little bit in the beginning. I get it. Sometimes it just seems like everything else is more important, and so sadhana can be our last priority. But I think you'll find that your spiritual practice really supports everything else in your life, and so it is worth making the time for. The days that I meditate are just better than the days that I don't. If you've ever had a regular practice, you've probably noticed the difference yourself. But it's always going to feel like there's not enough time. So we need to carve out time and make our spiritual practice a priority, or better yet, weave it into our daily life in small ways, whether that's 15 minutes per day or a couple days a week. Any amount of sadhana will bless your life. And then by working with your sankalpa, your intention, anything can become a spiritual practice. Some examples of a sankalpa or intention would be: my body is strong and healthy, and I move joyfully through this yoga class, even if you're just laying in shavasana for half of the class. Or another example would be: instead of road rage, I will send love to each car I pass. And then driving becomes spiritual practice. The point is that now is time for the spiritual practice, you guys. If not now, then when? Again, don't get me wrong, like, fall time is a great time for spiritual practice, but all year round, anytime, literally anytime is a great time. So you can see there are really no excuses. And shadow work counts as spiritual practice. So now is a great time for shadow work. Just remember, you guys, consistency is key, and a little bit of practice is better than no practice at all. No amount of effort on the spiritual path is wasted. You deserve this time for your nourishment and your own self-care. And practicing with a community does go a long way towards making consistency both fun and rewarding. So please consider investing in your sadhana this holiday season and joining us in community. Please join us for Inner Winter, a half-day yoga retreat for deep soul nourishment on Sunday, December 14th, 2025. More details on that right at the end of the episode, or you can find them at the link in the show notes. Before we end, you guys, what do you do when you feel the most in flow? Like, what are you doing when you feel the most connected to the world around you, connected to others, connected to spirit, to nature? Which activities allow your heart to open and expand with the most love? Those type of things that help you get into the flow state, that help you feel expansive and loving, those are all clues as to your best bet for your regular personal sadhana. And then consider what makes you feel small and contracted, what makes you feel fearful and protective of your heart. And that is your work. That's your shadow side to integrate. So let's just take a deep breath in together and let it go. And then one more time, breath in and let it go. And let's set the sankalpa together, just affirming my darkness is part of my inner light. I am whole. My darkness is part of my inner light. I am whole. All right, you guys. So in this episode, we did get real. We did get raw in the true spirit of Scorpionic energy. And as a Scorpio rising myself with Pluto in the first house, I shared some vulnerable, authentic, and challenging moments with you from my own journey. And now you have the powerful tools of sadhana or spiritual practice and sankalpa or intention in your witchy spiritual tool belt. Wow, tool belt. Very gay of you. And you've learned about the intense Scorpio archetype and how to apply that energy to do your own powerful shadow work and healing. And you've learned about the magic that happens when we prioritize turning inward. Don't forget to download your free self-care resource guide by signing up for my email newsletter on my website at youareloved.one/pod. And I love working with clients to reconnect with their bodies, ground and cleanse their energy, and open their hearts to receive during our community half-day yoga retreats. So please join us for Inner Winter, a half-day yoga retreat for deep soul nourishment on Sunday, December 14th at Cultivate Yoga in Avon, Ohio. I, Lee Davy, will guide you through slow flow yoga poses, breath work, chanting, intention setting or sankalpa, meditation, and a sound journey. Please register at the Inner Winter link in the show notes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, let's stay connected and stay witchy. I'll talk to you soon, and blessed be. With all my love, Lee Davy.